Thank y'all for having me today. And I really enjoyed this. I gave a talk about 6 weeks ago to the first kickoff of this program, of this brain health program. And I really appreciate Dr. Lynn McCrory inviting me to come and talk about brain health. And so it's really dear to my heart because my mother died of Alzheimer's, and then we have some Parkinson's and things like that run in my family. So I really took the initiative to learn more about this, and I'll explain a little bit more about it. But just to tell you a little bit about me, so I graduated from medical school in New Orleans at LSU. Then I did my internal residency in Galveston, Texas. Then we moved to Tampa before moving to Panama City in 1991. And so I worked in the emergency room for several years in the urgent care at Seawind while I was having my children. And then in 2001, I decided to go ahead and open up my own practice, which I thoroughly loved. But then I started to see that medicine was changing. So around 2015, I started seeing the signs of how insurance was starting to dictate how we practice medicine. They started saying, you got to see more people. You can only talk to them about one or three problems. You can only spend, if you're lucky, 15 minutes. Most of the time, it's going to be less than that. And so I was like, there's got to be a better way that you can spend more time with patients and not be that rush and get them in and out and just give the pill for an ill type thing. So I started looking at something called a concierge practice, which would allow me to have longer time with patients. Well, in order to do that, you had to you couldn't just take insurance alone. So I started what they called like a membership practice. Some people used to call it concierge. But basically, have less patients, spend more time with them. And then that conversion during that time, I started finding out something about functional medicine. And so as soon as I had that conversion, I started hearing about it. I started really working hard to learn about what functional medicine is. So in 2017, I did the fast track of it and became certified in this. And I'm going to explain more about what functional medicine is in a minute. So in one of the functional medicine lines, I was introduced to Dr. Dale Bredesen at our meeting. And I was one of the first group of doctors to go and get trained in his program of reversing dementia and early Alzheimer's. And in 2017, we were able to take a certification and become certified in his program. And what his program found out is that if you use a functional medicine approach, and I'll explain more about what that is in a minute, then you could actually help patients reverse their dementia or early Alzheimer's. So in 2017, I was one of the first groups to get certified. And then last year, he had another upgraded program, and I recertified in that this last year. So what is functional medicine? Well, if you look here, there's a tree over here, and you can see that like the branches and the leaves of the tree are things like we have diabetes, heart disease. You can even throw in like dementia, Alzheimer's, but people that have autoimmune problems, arthritis, and just aching all over, fibromyalgia, and obesity. Well, what we started finding out is that this approach that they started calling the root cause is really now the 21st century type of medicine. And not a lot of doctors are really practicing this just yet, but we're seeing a big growth of it now, especially after COVID. But if you can see at the bottom in what we call the root causes, these are the root causes that cause these diseases. So we look at these root causes and we use a more holistic or natural approach. So with this, we'll say, okay, well, if you have these diseases, why are these diseases happening? Let's look at all these root causes and find out the why instead of just the what. So in functional medicine, like she was mentioning earlier, instead of giving that pill for an ill, like, okay, you come in, I have this problem, or the stomach ache that she was describing, here, just take this pill and, good luck. Well, I'm going, okay, I don't want to just give the pill. I'm going to find out why you're having this stomach problem, because we know that the gut is the window to the rest of the body. So I get people off of these pills and get them healthier. So we start looking at the root causes, like we'll say, okay, what are your genetics? What's your family history? What in your lifestyle? What have you been exposed to? And we know that everybody's different. No, the people are not, I don't treat people the same. I take the individual person and go, okay, let's look at you. Let's look at like your timeline. What has happened to you? How were you born? Where did you grow up? What illnesses or traumas or things happened to you along the way? And where did you live? What were you exposed to? So this is all what functional medicine is looking at these root causes, finding out the why, and digging deeper. So today I'm here to talk about the brain health and this wonderful program that y'all have here now, which I think is just really taking off with this, with the brain tap or the Smart Fit. Thank you. The new program that y'all have here with this new machine. So what is dementia? Well, if you look at dementia, it's really kind of an umbrella term. And so what we have found out that, okay, you can have dementia is like losing some memory issues. So it's really a global, like all over the whole brain decline. So there's different types. So we know that dementia is when you start, you're starting to have memory issues. That's kind of the earliest sign. So people will start having trouble thinking, writing, remembering, maybe even driving places. They have trouble with calculating things, even organizing or even planning things. So there's three really kind of distinct types of dementia, and there you can see the smaller percentages, like 5 to 10%, different types of known causes of dementia. And the first one I like to talk about is vascular dementia. Well, that's when you have like little mini strokes or the blood flow is not getting to the brain. You can have hardening of the arteries, different things like that, inflammation of the arteries. There's also the frontotemporal dementia. Again, these are the lower, a lower number, lower percentage of dementia, but they're still very unique in that, like the frontotemporal dementia, you can see that you have unusual behavior, people become antisocial, they'll have trouble saying words or talking. And then, of course, you have the Lewy body, which is one that really is very unique in that you have visual hallucinations, you'll have delusions. And what's really kind of a telltale sign of this is people who, when they're sleeping and they get into that dream state, which is called the REM, the REM, the rapid eye movement state of sleep, people will fling their arms. And that's one of the questionnaires we ask about, for people to kind of like delineate if Lewy body dementia is prominent. So what is Alzheimer's? Well, of course, Alzheimer's, you can see over here, here's a healthy brain on the left and, severe dementia, Alzheimer's on the right, where you can see shrink of the brain. Well, we know that Alzheimer's is not a single disease. Okay, then, and we know now that no single drug is going to treat Alzheimer's. And there's a lot of drugs, that have come and gone. There's a few that are out, but we know that that if you give like certain drugs to help with dementia, it may slow things down, but it's not preventing or reversing the process of Alzheimer's. So we know that the brain, when the brain's attacked, it tries to protect itself from insults. So we know that there's certain categories that Dr. Bredesen has come up with that for Alzheimer's. Well, one of the first ones we talked about is the HOT. That's the inflammation of the brain. We know that infections affect the brain, diet. There's a lot of other causes as well that can cause inflammation of the brain. And then you have the cold. That's the one where you don't have the hormone levels have dropped down. As we age, you can lose hormones or the thyroid is affected. You can have vitamin and nutrient deficiencies. And a big one is insulin resistance, which we see a lot of today. And then the bile. Okay, this is toxins. So we are exposed to so many toxins now in the United States. Our food, our water, our air. We have a lot of chemicals now. We have more chemicals now in our society than we have ever had, and they keep making more and more. We know that heavy metals can affect this, like, and I'll talk more about like the old fillings that we used to have, the amalgams that are made that are silver that turn dark. Those are made from mercury. Mercury goes straight to the brain, is one of the number one causes of dementia and Alzheimer's. And also biotoxins. Now, what biotoxins is environmental toxins like mold. After Hurricane Michael, a lot of people had water damage to their homes. They don't even have to be from a hurricane. You can have a hot water heater leak or a dishwasher leak or air conditioning, different things like water coming in through the windows. Sprinkler systems on the house can come in and cause water damage in the house. And this creates, there's 5 toxic molds that we'll talk about, and that these are the ones that are very toxic to our brain and our bodies. So then there's also a genetic component. Now I'm mentioning one big one here. The ApoE4 is a gene that some people, so we all have ApoE genes, but the number 4 is really bad. They have seen, they've proven that if you genetically have it either from one parent or the other parent, because that's what our genes are, as mom and dad put together make us. But if you have an ApoE4, either one copy or in the double copy is even worse, you have a much higher risk of getting Alzheimer's. So that's a real important thing to know about, because it really affects how you eat, because people with ApoE4 cannot eat a high-fat diet. It's really bad for dementia. Now, what happens is the brain gets an insult from something or multiple things. It doesn't even have to be just one. And then the amyloid plaque is what develops in the brain to try to protect the brain. It tries to put a shield and help the brain protect. So a lot of the earlier studies with medications, they were trying to get rid of the amyloid in the brain because they thought this is what was causing the problem. Well, really, it's a protective mechanism. And if you start removing that amyloid plaque with drugs, then the brain gets worse. So they pulled that last drug off the market recently that did that. You also have what they call tau tangles that can occur in the brain because of these insults as well. So we know that Alzheimer's causes severe memory loss, cognitive deficiencies, and people get to where they can't really take care of themselves, which is not only horrible for the patient, but also for the family or the caregivers. That's really a strain. So we know that 1 in 9 Americans will develop Alzheimer's by the age of 65. That's really good. So that's 5 per 2 million people currently, and it's probably the numbers are probably even higher than that. So we know that with this, that Alzheimer's is very it just costs so much, and it's really putting a strain on Medicare. And the fear, and this is legitimate, that can happen is that it can really overwhelm Medicare system, the long care facilities. And again, like I said, it's very devastating to the family members or the caregivers. So what are the causes of cognitive decline? So these are the things that contribute to cognitive decline. So there's several things. So as I mentioned, inflammation. And we now have ways of measuring inflammation in the body, and that's something that I really focus on in patients, is getting inflammation down in the body. So things like infections, viruses, look at COVID, that's one. Even the herpes virus, the cold sores, they can get into the brain. There's a lot of other viruses as well, but we know that Lyme disease, and we like to use the general term Lyme when we really know that there are so many other infections that ticks and other biting insects can give us, whether mosquitoes or spiders and different things like that. But Lyme disease is kind of like, the catch-all phrase, but there's a lot of vector-borne, we'll call vector-borne, which are insects that can cause a lot of infections. Oral bacteria, that's becoming really huge now. We know that there's a certain bacteria that gets in the lining of the teeth and the gums that is directly related to heart disease. But if it's affecting the heart, it's also affecting the brain. So dental hygiene and dental care and treatment is very, very important for brain health. And then yeast, could be funguses, could be candida, could be different molds and things like that get into the brain as well and cause brain fog. So insulin resistance, I mentioned that. Unfortunately, our society today, we live in the standard American diet. The standard American diet is SAD, very sad. It's full of additives and preservatives and artificial, and it's just not the food that we grew up when we were younger that was cleaner, and now everything just seems to have additives and preservatives in it. Well, this kind of stuff causes a lot of people to gain weight and, of course, insulin resistance. And Dr. Bredesen talks about insulin resistance being one of the number one causes of dementia. Hormone imbalance, as I mentioned before, our thyroids just get affected, your thyroid's not working well, and as we age, we start losing hormones. And we now know how important it is now to preserve your hormones. There was a big scare, years ago that that made all the women get off of hormones. They said, it's going to cause breast cancer. Well, there's so much about that. I could give a whole lecture on hormones. And I do a lecture on that, talking about how those hormones that they did this study on years ago that scared everybody were synthetic hormones. This day and age, we're using bioidentical hormones for replacement and keeping people's brain healthier, their bones healthier, their muscles, their whole structural system is better by keeping a good amount of just a little bit of some hormones. And we know for a fact that low hormones is one of the leading causes of memory loss. So, I'm not saying everybody needs it. Of course, if people have had breast cancer, they have to be careful. But I still put some women who haven't had breast cancer in 20 years, I'll put them all back on hormones, and it just makes a world of difference. And men as well for testosterone. And like I mentioned before about mold's toxins. So mold, which are called myco, the word myco stands for fungus or mold, and toxins. So these mold toxins, there's 5 of them that happen in water damaged buildings. I know we live in Florida, everybody's exposed to molds. We have molds out there, but those aren't the harmful ones. The harmful ones are the ones that occur when we have water damage and they feed off of like the particle board or the sheetrock, and you won't even always see it. And you can't just get someone locally will come in and say, I'm going to do a mold test and put a little tripod and measure spores. I'm talking about mold behind the sheetrock that they emit these fumes that get into our body and create brain fog and are very damaging to the brain. I have so many people that come in that are just not thinking, they don't feel good. Like I said, they can be young and have brain fog and they just don't feel good and everything. And I have a way of testing for them in their body, and then also a way to test their home that will tell me if they are having mold toxicity, because that is one of the number one causes of brain issues as well. And of course, environmental toxins, like I mentioned, we live in a very, toxic world. We have ways of measuring this as well. In functional medicine, we have all these great tools now that we can measure things that normal labs are not testing. And they're all backed by science. And I'm telling you, when I test these people, I start treating them, find out, helping them along the way, they turn totally around. It's amazing. Heavy metals, I talked about mercury. So we get a lot of mercury, like I said, from the old dental amalgams. They don't use those anymore. But if you have a lot of them in it, there's a way to test for heavy metals in the body and look and see what your burden of mercury is. And there's organic mercury and inorganic mercury. There's all these sort of things. But when you do find that you have these toxicities, and we can find this out through some testing through the body, which is easy to do, then there's ways of detoxing all these things to get people better. Sleep deprivation. I can't emphasize enough how much sleep apnea needs to be tested in almost everybody. Everybody's like, I have a couple of ladies that are thin, they're active now, and they're having some fatigue and they're having some issues. And I'm like, let's do a sleep study. They go, but I'm not overweight. I'm like, well, you don't have to be overweight. If you're not getting oxygen at night and you're sleeping and your oxygen already kind of goes down a little bit at night, and when you have sleep apnea, if it occludes off, you're not getting oxygen to the brain. How is your brain going to clean itself out, stay healthy and all? Because we know at night, sleeping, the reason why we sleep is for the brain to kind of wash itself and get clean and get rid of all the junk from the day and all that. And not only the sleep apnea, but if you're really, they say, I can get by on 4 or 5 hours of sleep. That's not good. All studies show 7 to 8 to 9 hours of sleep is really what's adequate. And you really want to know if you're going through the right stages of sleep. Deep sleep is that cleaning phase. That's what's so important. And so, again, home sleep studies are real easy to do. They're very accurate. I've been very successful with helping people just preserve their brain and their body and their livelihood and their energy by just doing that. Exercise. Unfortunately, this day and age, people sit behind the computer too much. They go, well, I get in the morning and I go walk for 30 minutes, and then they sit all day long at their computer. That's not helping. You can't just expect to exercise a little bit in the morning and maybe just a little gentle walk. I mean, of course, that's better than nothing, but we really need people to be more active during the day. Don't sit all day long. Don't sit behind the computer all day long. Get up and walk around. Go get a friend and do some walking. Go gardening. Just getting out. Come in here and, and do some activities here. This is a wonderful opportunity here. And then stress. I mean, how much do we hear about stress killing? So, everybody's like, there are ways of managing stress. We have a lot of new technology and ways of helping with stress. And if you are stressed, talk to someone or, just do something, because the cortisol that comes from stress from our adrenal glands all the time is very damaging to the brain. And then the immune system, our immune system is so important to keep us healthy. I know people, if the word autoantibody, what that means is like something comes into your body and your own antibodies attack it, and they recognize your own system as a foreign, and that's when your body produces antibodies against itself. That's what autoimmune is. Cytokines is a term that a lot of people are like, oh, well, when COVID came out, I don't know if a lot of people have heard about cytokines, but what these are is these little messengers, little signals that are released from our cells in our body to give like warnings of that there's an insult. So COVID, when people got all this trauma and sick with the lungs and the brain and the body, that was all what we called a cytokine storm that came out, that our body was like shooting out these little messengers, and they're there to kind of warn the body and help the body return around. But if you get too much of it, it can be damaging to the body as well. And there's ways of measuring those and treating that as well. Now, another new term that a lot of people probably have not heard about, but we measure a lot, especially in functional medicine. I even use the Cleveland Heart Lab to do my cardiovascular testing on all my patients, which gives me inflammatory markers, a lot of different things. But one of the other markers I really love is homocysteine. Homocysteine is a little amino acid in our body that we like to keep it around a number 7. Well, most people coming in, their levels are high. Well, we're going, okay, what this is a marker of is how our body metabolizes or processes things in our body. So it's kind of like a little signal that I look at that, I'm like, okay, if your homocysteine's high, I need to find out, are you eating enough dark leafy green vegetables? Do you have enough folate? Do you have enough B12? Do you need a special kind of folate that is activated that, you can't just get over the counter? So there's a whole process with this, but this is, if it's elevated, it's linked to heart disease, stroke, dementia. So this is an important thing to be monitored and worked on. And then gut issues. Oh my goodness. I could go on and on about the gut. People are now finding out that the gut is the window to the rest of the body. And we know that if your gut's not well, then your body's not well. I mean, how many people, you go around and you go, oh gosh, my stomach hurts. When your stomach's hurting, you just don't feel good. And let's say that you're really, really stressed out, and then you get stomach problems. That's that gut-brain axis. Well, another thing about the gut, if people have a lot of like reflux or bloating or change in their bowel movements, like constipation or diarrhea, that right there, I always ask people about, how's your gut? Tell me about your poop. And everybody's like, oh, you're talking, like that's kind of like a taboo thing to talk about. I'm like, no, I need to know. Because if I know that people are not pooping every day, that they're not having good form bowel movements, I know that I've got to work that up, because I can spend all day trying to get people better, but I have to work on their gut first. And unfortunately, this day and age, our gut's really damaged. And the reason why it's damaged is because, again, I was talking about all the toxicities and things that are in our environment. But one of the worst things that has happened since the 70s is our wheat. Not only did they change it genetically, but they came out with a chemical, Roundup. That's a weed killer, okay? Roundup. Roundup's name is called glyphosate, okay? Glyphosate. Now, that is a weed killer. And unfortunately now, when they're planting the wheat that all of our bread is made from, okay, that is sprayed with glyphosate, which is Roundup. So they spray that to kill the weeds. They harvest the wheat. They take it, they grind it down, they make your flour, which is your white flour, which makes your bread, which is what everybody's eating now, especially in fast foods, restaurants, and all that stuff. Well, what you're doing is you're getting that chemical in your body. And they have now found out that glyphosate is killing the good bacteria of your gut. And when you kill that good bacteria, you get this thing called leaky gut. It also can cause the little cells of the gut are normally together, and your body's supposed to sit enzymes and break things down. And then, but what happens, the glyphosate opens those little gates in between the cells, and you get bigger particles or things that your body's not really supposed to get into its blood system through the gut into your body. And that causes inflammation in the body. People get joint problems. They get arthritis. They get rashes. They get they can have psoriasis or different things. They get brain fog, and they just have fatigue, and they don't feel good. And they're just like, I just don't feel good. I've got all these problems. Well, I'm like, okay, we got to put you on a gluten-free diet. And the reason why everybody's talking about gluten-free is because wheat is gluten. So if you're going on a gluten-free, you're not eating wheat. There's some other grains as well, not just wheat, that are gluten. So that's where all that comes from. It's kind of like a little abridged version of what all this is. But people really need to know why people go gluten-free. And everybody's like, oh, you don't have to worry about it. This day and age, we do. And you know that one other thing is that when I was younger, we didn't really see autism that really growing up. Well, now they've found out that autism is just skyrocketed. It's like not just going a little bit up, it is going like this trajectory. Well, when they look at the amount of glyphosate Roundup that's in it, and they even show them the map where it is prominent, that glyphosate and autism go together. So all these teachers now, like every teacher I know is now a special needs teacher. And so that's really a lot of research, and I think things are going to start hopefully turn around one day. Of course, the lobbyists, it's really hard to fight the big lobbyists of all this. But so the other thing that I'm going to talk about scientifically is mitochondria. So the mitochondria are your little energy packets that you have in each cell. This is what gives you your energy. This is what makes your heart beat. This is what makes your brain work. This is what makes your muscles work, your bones, all that. So there's ways now of measuring mitochondria, the energy packets, and there's also ways of supporting mitochondria, which helps. And then, of course, being overweight. That's one of the worst things that you can do for your body for multiple reasons, for inflammation and such as well. And then the genetics I mentioned earlier about the ApoE4. There's other genes as well associated with some dementias and such as well that I didn't mention here, but we can cast. So can Alzheimer's be treated? That's the whole thing we're here for, right? We go, okay, all the bad news. Now what can we do about it? Well, we know that drugs are really they're not treating it. They're not turning things around. They may slow things down, but they don't turn it around, for long term. So 21st century medicine that I'm talking about, functional medicine, we go beyond asking what the problem is. We go, well, why is this happening? So let's use a functional medicine approach of finding out why. So Dr. Dale Bredesen this is the guy who I started training with in 2017, become certified. He actually has been research for years. He's a neurologist in California that did a lot of research and studies, and he took 100 patients and did his functional medicine approach for reversing dementia, and he published it, and then he was able to write this New York best-selling book about it. And he's also come out with more studies since then and more books. But he has shown that you can actually reverse dementia and Alzheimer's by doing his program. So it's a personalized approach. The RE is reversal of cognitive decline, and pre-code is the prevention of cognitive decline. So if you feel like you may be having some issues, you can go on his website and take like this little test and see where you are. Now, so what his program is preventive. So in reversal, he says 7 things, but it was a little bit more than 7. So he puts you on a non-inflammatory diet. So this is going to be more plant heavy, and he calls it the keto flex, where you eat in a shorter period during the day. You don't eat at night, and it's a very structured meal plan. He now just came out like last week with where now you can even order delivery meals that are prepared, which makes it even easier for a lot of people. So we always talk about the Mediterranean diet, but this, his is a variant of that. So exercise, and you really have to do it really is better to do 45 to 60 minutes, 4 or 5 times a week, or even more if you can. And then sleep. We talked about that. Get quality sleep, get tested, see if you need any assistance with that. And there's different things without everybody's always afraid of having this thing on their face. But there's other ways sometimes as well that can help. But whatever it takes to get quality sleep and get oxygen to the brain at night. Stress reduction. I think y'all offer yoga, Tai Chi maybe. Meditation is huge for stress reduction. Music, and just deep breathing. I teach a lot of my patients how to do deep breathing for stress reduction. But it can even be things like getting out gardening, just doing something you enjoy. And then the brain training. There are some programs you can do. He's got this Brain HQ is really an important one that it's been scientifically shown that it really helps keep the brain exercising in shape. And of course, also there's different things that you can use. And of course, as I mentioned, the gut, so important. And we do have ways of fixing the gut. And then keeping your weight down, staying active. Dr. Bredesen did come out with some supplements that have been proven scientifically that do help support the brain, that help the brain. There's several different ones, and he has a protocol that when you do his Recode program, that he can tell you what supplements are needed. And I have a whole list of different ones that we can talk about. But insulin resistance, we'll talk about that, and then keeping the hormones balanced, as well as stay away from toxins. What that means: clean air, breathing clean air, clean water, drinking filtered water or spring water. And then your food, you want to not everything has to be organic, but there are certain foods that have to be organic, like strawberries, kale, spinach. There's a list. You can go online and you can check to see, okay, what foods have to be organic. Those are called the dirty dozen. Now, the ones that don't have to be organic are called the clean 15. And, you can kind of go on the site, pick out the foods you like, say, okay, I had to go shop for organic for these. These I won't have to spend the extra money on. And then hearing. It's always so important to get your hearing checked. Hearing aids, there's been studies showing that it really helps the brain, keep the brain sharp as well. And a rich social network. This is great. Y'all hear this program. So important. The pandemic, if it did one thing, it caused a lot of problems just from the isolation. That was probably one of the most devastating parts of the pandemic. And luckily now people are out socializing again, and that's such an important part. And of course, if you go to your doctor and get an annual screening to see where you are, we have some mental status exams that we do that are real easy to do. And I'll go into detail a bit more about this. So talking about testing for cognitive decline. So again, the questionnaires, we have some questionnaires that we do. If the questionnaires are kind of like, okay, maybe let's go a little bit deeper. There's a computer program that we do. It's called the CNS BS. And so this is the paper chart that we get people to fill out. It's the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, the SLUMS of the St. Louis University mental status. And then again, this is the computer program that we do in the office that takes about 30 minutes to do. And it really shows a lot of information. And then you can go to Dr. Bredesen's site, the Apollo Health online, and kind of look and do some testing as well. So there's more advanced testing that we don't really do a lot of. And the reason why it's very expensive, it's hard to find places that do it. I've had the hardest time trying to get this test done. They don't do it anywhere around here, and they send the software off to places that do it. Anyway, it looks at the biomes of the brain, because we know that you can look at different parts of the brain. There's a part of the brain called the hippocampus. That's where your memory is the most important for your memory. And if you have shrinkage of that hippocampus, we want to see that. Is it on the right side? Is it left? Is it both sides? And then we go, okay, well, why is this happening? And that really helps. And then you can kind of monitor those. Like I said, there are places that do it. I have a hard time around here finding it, but I do send patients out of town for it. Now, these PET scans, the amyloid PET, these are extremely expensive. Medicare doesn't pay for them very rarely. It's hard to find these tests, and this is really kind of more at, I would say, at university or research places they can do these things. And of course, a spinal tap to look at the protein and things like that in the brain. I don't recommend doing that. It's very invasive. There can be side effects with that, but some people do that. So recommendations. Okay, know your risk. It's never too early. If you even think about it, kind of like, okay, what do I need to do? Check out a program. Like, you can go online to Dr. Bresa and find people who, are trained in this, because his program really, and I know kind of touting his program the most, but his is the only program that has been proven to work to reverse things. So the pre-code or the recode. And then Apollo Health is his site. I think we have some handouts with this on there. You can go online and Google it as well. And he's got some diagnostic tools and some tracking tools. You can see how you're doing if you start implementing a lot of these lifestyle things. So if you think you're experiencing dementia, start early. So see if anyone has any questions. I hope I didn't give too much information too quickly. Yes.
Does insurance, does Medicare and all pay for clinical medicine in a way?
So my practice, I do functional medicine. So I do take insurance, but I can't do this in 15 minutes. So how I work mine is I have a membership. So people will pay to have the longer appointments, the after hours, the access, to message me and my staff whenever on any question, things like that. So Medicare does pay for visits. They do pay for a lot of the blood tests. In fact, I have Medicare, it's funny how Medicare will pay for the urine mold, the mycotoxin test, whereas Blue Cross won't. People have to pay a pocket for that. They'll pay for some of these stool tests, the gut tests, they'll pay for some of those. It's really funny, on a daily basis, I'm always trying to figure out what insurance is going to do and not do. They change without even letting us know. But no, they do pay for lab work, a lot of the lab work. There may be some specialty ones. I don't know if they're paying for the heavy metals and the mercury.
No. Okay, well, yeah, and they kicked the doctor out of the account.
Oh, I remember her. Yeah. But they haven't kicked me out. But mine's legitimate. The things that I'm doing are legitimate. They're not it's all science-based. Everything I do has been researched and documented and yes, chelation. Yeah. And I do chelation, but I'm not doing the IV. We found out there's better ways to chelate people now without going through the, because that's really hard on kidneys and a lot of things. But I can chelate people very well, and they do very well there.
Yeah.
Yes.
So do you suggest everybody go gluten-free? Not only eat a lot of bread, but when I do, it should all be gluten-free.
Well, I don't want to say that everybody has to go gluten-free. I suggest that people do just because it's safer and it's generally healthier. But you have to be careful because not all gluten-free bread is, you have to really do your research or your homework because they can have other things in it too that could be harmful. So I like to live a gluten-free life. I feel so much better when I'm doing it. So will do like sourdough bread. I'll do
What brand?
What brand?
What brand?
Well, I probably shouldn't say any brands, but I generally I like even the homemade, like people who make homemade. That's generally better. It's not fully gluten free, but it's better for you. So if you're going out, if you had to do a choice and you're out at a restaurant, try to choose that, or just don't eat the bread.
I don't cook, so.
Yeah. But people we all grew up thinking you have to eat bread. Everybody's that was our staple growing up. And so now we're finding out that people don't need that because that's extra carbohydrates that you don't always need, you really need to limit your
I
carbs.
don't go gluten-free, then you need to do organic breads or.
No, because not even organic can be wheat.
Okay.
And I would say if it has non and GMO, which means non-genetically modified, generally stay with that. Now you can find in the green wise a lot of times, but I don't want to say that it's always that way. And there's certain places where you can get the organic and the gluten-free, but I would always read the ingredients. They have so many ingredients on there that you're like, what is this word? Or what is, can't understand, or too many things. Don't put it in your body.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. But you can eat things like potatoes and like brown rice or quinoa, things like that.
But this apply to flour from, say, Italy, like Caputo.
I mean, personally, the things from Italy, I generally feel better. Like when I was in Italy, I could eat things that I couldn't eat here, and I did better. But unfortunately, I don't know if I can say a name, but people who make the glyphosate, the Roundup, it's becoming worldwide now. So it's starting to hit Europe. Yeah, unfortunately. Okay. Yeah.
How do you feel about these?
I'm not a big fan.
But we give them for our seniors.
Yeah. If you read how much, one thing when you're giving people,
It's a protein drink. I held up one that is protein.
yeah, it's a protein drink. And
Yeah.
okay, so read the label. If it has, you want to make sure that it doesn't have, high fructose corn syrup. You also want to make sure that it doesn't have erythritol as a sweetener. So artificial sweeteners are really bad, just like sugar. So I tell my patients, I have a weight loss program in my office, and one of the first things we do when people come in is we go, okay, what are you eating? What are you drinking? And they go, oh, I'm doing Diet Coke. That's one of the first things I get them off of. Artificial sweeteners cause insulin resistance, number one. Yeah. You'll never lose weight. You drink and diet, anything diet with artificial sweeteners. Now, you can do stevia if it's the real stevia. And you can do monk fruit, maybe a little bit of honey, to be careful, things like that. But natural is always better.
What about xylitol?
No.
No.
Mm-mm. And that's really hard on the gut too. Xylitol it's anything that ends in all is an alcohol. An all is not good for you.
Okay. So
Sorbitol, xylitol, erythritol.
sweet like coffee help.
Get some stevia drops, and they have them at the grocery stores. It's natural.
Okay. And molasses.
It's real high in sugar.
Black molasses.
You have to be careful. Like honey and molasses are very high in sugar. It's a high glycemic index. Spikes your blood sugar.
Okay. All right, stevia.
Yes, sorry. Stay away from this is what I always tell people. Stay away from the pink, yellow, and green pack, or pink, blue. Pink, yellow, blue packs. Those little things like that dumb. Now, they do have, some places now have the little stevia powder packs. They're green. That's right.
So do the green packs.
Yes. And better. It's always read everything. Just read the labels. See what you're putting in your body. I mean, knowledge is power.
Right.
That's right. Are those pink, blue?
Yellow.
Yeah.
They're pink. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm asking. How about probiotics?
So probiotics are really good. Now, of course, probiotics are really good to kind of get the gut back again. Now, in functional medicine, we do a 5R program, which we remove, we replace. There's different things that we're doing for the gut. Okay. And probiotics are one of the things to re-inoculate type, but we really want to start using foods. Now, it's good initially to use probiotics, but you don't want to just we don't want to have people just stay on them forever, which maybe some people might need a little support with that. But, you can get foods. Probiotics are formed in foods that are fermented. Now, not everybody can do fermented foods because if they're still having what they call SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or SIFO, which is small intestinal fungal overgrowth, if you take food like that, it can make you have more bloating and gas and things like that. So we have to address that first. But like fermented foods, like things that are pickled and homemade things are even better. Things that are like kombucha or I don't know, different kind. You want different kind of pickling things: sauerkraut, kimchi, pickled okra. It's just pickles. I know my favorite. Oh, I love them too. So and like I said, you don't want the same thing all the time. Your body needs to eat different foods, and just eating fiber is one of the best things you can put in your body. We don't eat enough fiber in America. That's why a plant heavy, like Dr. Breston's thing, is a plant heavy. So you want the plant heavy for the fiber, the phytonutrients. It has all the things. I mean, eating a plant-based diet is great. Now, I don't want you going, full vegan or vegetarian, because there are certain things that your body does need too. And if you are vegan or vegetarian, I'm not saying no, but you're going to have to do other things to supplement that if you're not eating some things for B12. But the plant-heavy diet is really the go-to. Now, and we always say use meat as a condiment. Like, you don't want the, all meat. Like, a lot of people are doing all these different diets. Everybody's, well, what diet's best for me? Well, we always say Mediterranean or a plant-heavy diet is always best. People are doing these keto, full keto, or all these different diets. And yeah, it may help them lose weight, but you're not getting what your body really fully needs long term. Okay. Yes.
I have one more question. 22 years ago, I had breast cancer. Through all the treatments and everything. Well, I was fine until 2 years ago. I had a different breast cancer come up. And so now I take an estradiol.
Estrogen blocker.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
The newer hormone treatments.
Well, I wouldn't know, you wouldn't go at this point, but I can tell you that, breast cancer comes from toxins in our environment. I mean, toxins like to go into fat tissue. So what are the fat tissues in our body? Our brain, our breast, the central, all those kind of things. So, toxins like to go into the fat tissue, and, and people will gain weight when they're toxic because toxins go in there. Well, I like to say the saying, the solution to pollution is dilution. Now, what that means, when you put toxins in, that's pollution. So the solution is the fat cells will add more to try to dilute it out. So your best bet is, like I said, sweating, keeping the weight down, detoxifying, and staying away from the standard American diet. I mean, go back to the way God made food. Yes, please.
When you were talking about sleep, if you would, Dr. Reed, I'm going to speak for my son since he's not here. He was recently diagnosed with extremely high blood pressure, and he's 30.
Yes, that's
He's an
inflammatory.
athlete. He played college ball, all that kind of stuff, When he went to the doctor, his blood pressure was like dangerously high, and he comes in and tells me all this, and I'm like, well, you had your tonsils removed, you had your adenoids removed, and the reason I'm saying that because he had a sleep study done, and the sleep study showed that was part of what was blocking his airway, was his, and this is hard for me to believe, but I saw them, his tonsils were so large they were the size of golf balls.
Yeah, so he wasn't getting oxygen, so he's not getting air, and so that causes inflammation in the body, which causes hypertension, because hypertension is an inflammatory state.
Absolutely. So, I mean, he's done all that, but now his blood pressure is up. So the doctor said, if you might need to have another sleep study. And he said, well, he's a big guy. He's a football player, that type of thing. And he said, well, I was thinking about losing 30 pounds. And he said, well, I'm not going to tell you not to do that.
Yes.
He said, because you're not overweight, because you're muscle bound. But it's his personal thing he wants to do. Lose 30 pounds.
Yeah.
So all that being said, I said, did he talk to you about stress? And he's like, well, no. And I said, you've been through quite a lot of changes recently. And I said, it's added stress to your life. And I said, maybe that is a contributing factor as to your blood pressure being elevated and the fact that you're maybe not sleeping as well as you should. Can you comment on that?
Yeah. So, like I said, when people come in with hypertension, like I said, it's an inflammatory process. And so we know that like not getting oxygen at night is going to be very inflammatory to the body. So when people come in with hypertension in my office, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to look at, their weight, their stress in their life. There's a lot of contributing factors, but I get people off their blood pressure medicine a lot. In fact, when my nurse started to come to work for me, she's like, how come no one's on blood pressure medicine? Your patients, hardly no blood pressure medicine. I'm like, because I want to get them off, So that's part of the thing is helping patients, counseling them and all that. But yes, I mean, not sleeping, having sleep apnea is a stress, just like stress in life. All these things can be very, very stressful. So yes, you got to look at the person and say, okay, what do we need to do to change this? I mean, of course, I am going to put people on medication to get their blood pressure down so they're not having a stroke or, causing, more heart problems or heart failure and all. So, start them on that and then get them better and get them off and help them learn how to get better. Looking at, there's a lot of factors, that we look at, like also their blood sugar levels. And so even though they're very muscular and they're overweight, it doesn't mean like I can't talk about because I don't know him very well. So I don't want to make any kind of suggestion. But yeah, we look at all those factors.
I think that was a concern of mine as a parent.
Yeah.
That he's 30 and he has extremely high blood pressure. But the fact that his first thing was, I don't want to take medication.
Right.
And I said, well,
You got to protect us,
yeah.
I mean, you got to put the oxygen, like on the airplane, you want to put the oxygen on and take care of yourself so that you can make it. So, right. Yeah. But he could eventually get off if he changes some lifestyle factors.
But as I told you, I said, your sleep is it's an vital part of being a little nice.
Yeah. I would say sleep study would be one of the first things to do, or, atrial fibrillation. When I see patients come in with atrial fibrillation, and that's one of the things I will do is a sleep study on someone who comes in with AFib. Of course, I'll make sure they're not drinking too much alcohol, because alcohol contributes to atrial fibrillation. I mean, there's a lot of different things, but those are kind of the two big ones.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
So, what do you feel would be the cause of hemochromatosis?
So hemochromatosis is definitely genetic. And there's different variants of it. So you can have you can be what they call homozygous, which is a very strong, both sides of the family, or you can have a variant like one parent, then the other one that's heterozygous and all. So I do screen for hemochromatosis a lot. Like one of the first things to look at when I'm measuring on my lab work, I'm always checking what they call ferritin levels, because that's, the iron stores. And I'll look at the iron and all that. But, and I'll run hemochromatosis genetic tests, like Medicare don't like to pay for that. So I have a lab that I send people to for cash to get it done cheaper if they, because I feel like it's very important to know, some genetic things. So it's an iron overload. Like genetically, people hold on to too much iron, and then the iron gets into organs like the heart, the liver, a lot of things in the body, and it can lead to, a lot of, yes, all kind of things. So
I am hemochromatosis, and my blood pressure was rising. And so, because I have Raynaud's,
autoimmune.
she put me on a calcium blocker, high blood pressure medicine. My blood was so thick that nobody could draw it.
Yeah, so you're donating, or they're sending you to get.
Yeah. So since she put me on this calcium blocker pilot. Now I can actually bleed. Which in my little old pea brain is like, okay, that's a good thing because I know I'm not getting stuck with a lot of, blood clots or something like that.
And one of the most important things I'm sure you're doing is avoiding high iron foods like spinach.
Absolutely.
You don't cook in a black iron pot and stay
Right,
away from raisins. I mean, there's certain foods that you have to avoid.
right,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I screen for that in my patients, like doing just a ferritin and iron. Yeah, there's so many things that I look at when I have patients come in. I do a real thorough thing, looking for all kind of things like that, little hidden things like that.
Right, yeah. So at the moment, that's what I'm,
Yeah, well, good.
That's fixing my problem
Yay.
for now.
Yeah. Good. Yes.
Are you accepting new patients?
I am. And so, again, my practice, I converted it, I changed to spend more time with people and do a more personalized approach. So to allow me to do that, because I can't survive. I can't cover my overhead just on insurance. So I do a membership. So people will pay out of pocket, in addition to use it, for office visits or whatever, but they'll pay a membership fee, like you would, if you joined a club or something like that.
It's monthly or annually?
You can do monthly. Yes, monthly.
I looked you up right away.
Oh, You already
And
did?
it does say, yeah, well, because of insurance,
yes.
and just to check, to see if, my insurance would cover part of, visit. And you all, I mean, it says
I'm on
you
all
are accepting
insurances.
new- Yeah, it's United Healthcare, but it
Yes.
says you're.
I am a provider for all insurances. There might be a TRICARE. There's a certain TRICARE one that I don't take because it's
So you say you can do monthly membership?
Yes.
So do you find that maybe our medical field will change that at some time and let us do this functional medicine? Because personally, I think it's much better for people.
It is better.
Going into the doctor and,
Yeah.
you got a headache here, let me give you
Yeah.
a solution for it to get rid of it, but not the underlying.
I'm telling you, across the country, a lot of doctors, are doing it. Unfortunately, there's not. It's starting just like anything. It takes time. I think I've spent a lot of time studying and learning, going to conferences, webinars. Probably too much. I'm probably, like every waking moment I'm reading and, but I have this hunger to learn. And so it's a lot to learn. And even not learning that, but just learning the test and learn where there's a lot to it. And I think I'm going to my annual meeting for functional medicine next week in Orlando, which is going to be good because the first time in 3 years we can meet in person now, and it's just wonderful. But I got a lot of conferences. Like I'm involved in the International Society of Environmental Associated Diseases, like environmental medicine. I'm also in the International Lyme and Associated Disease, and I'm in a mentorship with some mold literate doctors that written books and stuff like that. And,
I see the pharmaceutical industries going against it.
Oh, yeah. Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't get too many drug reps anymore. I used to get but oops. They do. Some of them do come around, but yeah, I'm not like, I'm just telling you what I've done. I have transformed so many people. It's amazing. And so I grew up very traditional, and so both my parents were physicians in Louisiana. So I grew up, follow that. And then when the thing about it is, like, everybody was just doing these drugs all the time, and I'm like, I'm not against people like using them, like I said, as needed. But I have patients that come in, and I'm telling you, I can take them and make them into better people and longer lives, and they just feel better, and they're thinking better, their neuropathy's better, their brain fog, their joints, their swelling, there's just so many things that functional medicine addresses. It's been very eye-opening for me, but like I said, I was trained traditional, and it took me a little while to kind of change my brain into like, okay, does this stuff really work? And then I started applying it, and you see things happen, you go, whoa, wow, okay, yeah. And so, proof is in the pudding. And I've been very, very pleased. It took me, like I said, I was very like, okay, you have to prove it to me. I want to make sure this stuff really works. And I started doing it. I kind of hesitant at first, but yeah, it's been great.
Why do I have high blood pressure? Why do my whole family have it? Is it because of where we're from, that sort of thing? Or the hormones, not being on hormones for years? Is that contributing? And I was always so worried about Parkinson's and Alzheimer's because my father.
Yep.
So immediately, having a.
And so Parkinson's runs in my family as well as the Alzheimer's, so I'm very passionate about that.
And my dad, he got it kind of early. He had to do medical retirement for the program.
Yeah.
Like in his 40s.
Wow.
But, I was always so worried, gosh, is my memory leading
Yeah.
to that?
That's good you're being aware, because that's what got me into it, was like, okay, I'll learn about this. Yeah. I'll be happy to answer any other questions afterwards as well if y'all have anything. And but thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you.